maybe I'm not the worst gambler ever.
Oh my gosh!
But I don't frequent the window as much as Kayshon Boutte did back in the day.
Incredible.
Man, he was averaging, and I did the math this morning on this. So this is a guy that placed, 9,000 bets in roughly 13 months?
Yeah.
So he was betting 23 different wagers a day for 13 straight months.
Can I just tell you what I think happened here? Is that Kayshon Boutte was the center man for a group of friends that were placing a lot of bets at the same time.
Yeah, there's no way.
It feels like, right?
No way he was doing it all himself. And again, I don't know why people are in an uproar because he was 20. You got to be 21. Like if he was drinking 9,000 beers, that might be a little different if he was drinking 23 beers a day for 13 months.
That's a lot of beer.
But, I mean, this is just, I can't wait to see what the NFL does because this was all on his watch in Baton Rouge, it seemed. He never bet against himself. I've always said that was why I never really had a problem with the Pete Rose thing because he never bet against himself.
He bet for himself. Brownie explained,
go well.
Brownie explains now the weirdest night I remember watching LSU football.
That's right. It was the Superdome game, 2022 season against Florida State. He bet over 89, or I think 81 yards receiving and a touchdown. He had 20 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns.
And very few targets. Yeah, very few targets.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels was not throwing him the football, and he was visibly upset on the sideline. Like, it became a huge storyline in that game, if you remember. Like, man, Kayshon Boutte's mad. Everybody's like, he ain't getting the ball. Well, it wasn't just he ain't getting the ball. He ain't getting the ball, and he ain't cashing a bet.
Well, the bad thing there is how many of his friends did he say, hey, look, I'm heavily involved in the game plan? I mean, he had to have thought that he was getting a ton of touches.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got eight friends, we'll say, that have all kicked in, or if you got the money from boosters that kicked in, however it plays out, and you're making these bets, and if Kayshon's involved in it, if I'm one of the guys who's my money's in on this, I'm like, yeah, I'll bet on Kayshon too. I think surely we're going to target him. I'm in practice.
I mean, if I would have called you guys and said, look, I've got a friend that's on the staff at LSU, and he has heard from some of the players that Kayshon has put X amount of money on himself to go over 7.5 receptions tonight, I mean, I'd feel pretty good about playing that. Would you not?
Yeah, because they've been in practice.
But I will say most of the time I get inside information.
I was about to say.
Never works.
Yeah, you say that a lot. When you get the behind-the-scenes guy, it never pans out, does it?
I will say, though, that I was checking out this. He's a reputable handicapper, and he says that Kayshon made over $500,000 in the last 13 months.
No, that was winnings.
Okay, we don't know what. So what are the losses?
We do know what the losses were. He himself put in a total of $130,000 out of his pocket,
or somebody's pocket,
or out of someone's pocket. Yeah. All right, Kayshon Boutte put in $130,000. His total winnings were $500,000, most of which he reinvested into other bets.
Okay,
he only cashed out a total of $50,000. So all told, he lost $81,000 over 2 years.
So he's
13 months.
Roughly, I'm just doing this math on the fly, $50 a wager.
That's exactly right.
That's what the math I did, yeah. So, I mean, they were massive.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a big deal.
But there were a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger deal is he's maybe a degenerate, and he's got what we would call a gambling problem.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. And this would be smart on Kayshon Boutte's part. Let's say he has the account now, right? But fraternity boys who don't have the account are paying me, which is why I would have 22, 23 bets a day on average. Lance is, we'll call a Pi Kappa Alpha, and he comes walking up to me and he's like, "Yeah, I hear you're taking bets for people. Here's, and he takes a little off of their top, the top, and spins it around, basically running book through that site."
That's a lot of effort for a guy that's about to play in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think you'd run it through the site. I think you would just hold it.
You'd hold it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you'd have to have some sort of education in the whole gambling game to know that that's better, though, right?
I mean, I think he was more about the action and less about actually making money with this. I could be completely wrong, but that's the way it seems. If you're betting $50 a game and you're betting that much, I'll be interested to see what the NFL does, if anything.
Yeah.
Because doesn't it seem like all this was on LSU's watch?
It all was, yeah.
But if you read, there's one count is a felony charge, and they do have a rule in the NFL about being charged with a felony.
But think about how silly this felony is. I mean, there's a lot of felonies. There's, remember, felony was not, or I guess it was a federal crime knocking down a mailbox, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying that by their rule, it is a felony on one count. If he knows he did this, that probably is there to scare him into taking a plea offer, something less.
I think if this is Calvin Ridley, it's a bigger deal because he was playing in the NFL, and we know their rules on this.
And he got suspended, a whole year?
But don't forget, you cannot place any bet, NFL or not, from an NFL facility. So if the NFL starts to look at that and finds out he did that,
but
then
it
he
looks
is
like
suspended.
the bets were only through May of last year, and he was drafted in May of last year. So I don't know if he was ever around the facility or if he was even at that particular point a New England Patriot.
Right, but I'm sure the NFL is looking into his recent action to see if he started back gambling again. He was not hiding his identity, by the way. Both of his usernames included the words Kayshon and Boutte.
Yeah.
There were two different
The only
usernames.
part that's a story to me is it was that amount, like 23 bets a day for 13 months.
That was the
Outside
shocking
of that,
part.
I just, like if this was, he placed 100 wagers over the last year, I just don't think this is a story at all. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think that in the money. I mean, when you see $81,000 in losses for a college student, that's a pretty shocking number.
It is, but when you bet that many times, it's going to balance out.
No doubt.
Yeah, that whole last season, G. Wilson is right. He looked out of shape and really lost a step. Didn't seem to get as much playing time that year until late in the year.
You remember a lot of people thought he was coming to Alabama.
It took him a while to crank up.
Yeah.
And now he's with the Patriots, so he's in the NFL. He's making a little bit of money.
Barely.
But I've got buddies that they'll wager $100,000 in a weekend on games on a full college slate in NFL Sunday, but they're betting $1,000 a game, or $2,000 a game. So
Did you say 100,000 though?
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but if you might lose a couple of $1,000 on juice, or you're a couple of games under 500, but you could look at it and you'd be like, damn, he lost $100,000 this week, and well, he won $110,000.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot because that is a lot of money.
I mean, that's a lot to have gamble. But I mean, if you're worth $10 million, I mean, there is a scale there, right?
But if you went back and you looked at your mybookie.ag account over the year, you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I wagered that much. But it doesn't seem like, because you're winning, you're losing, you're winning, you're losing. If you lost everything or won everything, it would be more magnified.
Yeah. To your point is, I have no idea how much I've wagered since I opened the account right at the start of football season. I just know I'm $9 up from what I put in originally.
So I mean, he lost a little more than half of what he put in. If he put in 130,000 and cashed out 81,000, he lost roughly half of what he put in.
That's the bottom line. The rest of it is stats. The final score is he put in $130,000 and he got out 50,000. He lost 81,000.
Yeah.
That's the final score. The rest of it's just passing percentages and all that.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a story outside of the fact. I think they are. The fact that he was 20, again, I would equate this to a 20-year-old college student drinking.
Yeah. By the way, this number is, but if you look at the research in America, that number that he is betting is probably right on par with a lot of average college students.
You're talking about per bet, the $50?
$50 and probably the total bets that are made. I mean, you have a lot of gambling going on with college-age boys.
So we had carbon
and
copies.
some girls in Tuscaloosa, Auburn, Knoxville, Baton Rouge, everywhere.
This is old school. When we booked, it was before websites. Everybody that is a bookmaker out there, they've got their own website now. So it's 24/7. Everything's taken care of. It would be a lot less of a headache, but we had carbon copies. And so 503 would call in, and he would bet $25 on Maryland, $25 on Penn State, and $25 on LSU. We pull it apart. 503 here, the yellow. 503 here, the pink. We'd have two. So we would have two piles you would grade. And then if you had a discrepancy, I had 503 up $713. Well, I had him only up $503. We'd go back, take his cards, and see what we missed on. So, but my ultimate point was going to be, I remember writing up more 25s and 50s, and that's 30 years ago.
Yeah, that is. I think 50 now is going to be a very average medium line bet.
Yeah, or $100, 50 to 100. It used to be 25 to 50.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Positive notes here. This is another sign that there is some, some signs of firewalls here, some ways to sort of prevent some illegal action happening from a player in a game. You see, this is another, we've seen it a lot in the NFL recently, of guys who are not supposed to be betting getting caught. And another thing here, LSU says that they were made aware of it in July of 2023. They've been cooperating all through the process. And the third thing is that Kayshon Boutte, it was not a legalized gambling situation, forget his age, but with the way we do gambling in America now online, you got to have that money up front first in order to place that bet. In the old days, he would have gotten way behind the 8 ball.
Well, who was he playing with? Did it say the sports book?
It did not say the sports book.
Okay, well, see, here's another thing. I said that
gambling is legal if you're 21 and over in Louisiana.
Yeah, the only law he broke was being underage.
Underage,
yeah.
right.
Okay, then he was probably using a legal sports book. What I was going to say is, I just said that all of these bookmakers have their own websites, but those guys, you don't have to have the money up front. It's still
That's
the
right.
old school way.
Yeah.
So although it's online and you can get it 24/7, you're still, a lot of these guys are Venmoing now. You can Venmo or meet, settle up, that kind of thing.